All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to speak with an individual competing at Oktagon 68, which goes down in a few days on March 8th specifically, and an attention-grabbing fight set to go down with Robin Frank and Denis Frimpong, and great having Dennis on Bowks Talking Bouts to discuss the upcoming fight and a few different subjects too. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Full of water, so always a bit cold when I'm full of water, but other than that, ready to go.
Yeah, and just what are your thoughts on this matchup here? Because it seems like you're really, stepping into quite the, quality matchup here, just in as far as fighting an undefeated fighter. I feel like some fighters enjoy that, dynamic where they could potentially put that first blemish on the record. Like, what are your thoughts on your upcoming opponent here, Robin Frank, and everything?
Yeah, I just think like he's undefeated, but he's never been tested. Like he's never been tested, I don't think, the way I've been tested. Like I might not be undefeated, but I've got experience against really good guys, really good opponents, whether I've lost or I've won. But I've just been in there with tougher guys and more battle tested, more battle hardened than he is. And I will be the person to put that first blemish on his record.
Yeah, it's such an interesting matchup for sure. Like, what are your, I guess, like main takeaways from like what you've seen with like, I don't know, make some tape study that you might have been doing. Like, is that something that you generally do? Because I know some fighters will really get into like the minutia of what their opponent brings to the table, whereas some fighters are more focused on just, what they're looking to bring to the table, as it were.
Yeah, like I'm definitely more focused on what I'm bringing to the table, but I'd be a liar if I said I don't study his tape. I study every opponent. I find little patterns. I my brain works in that way where I develop pattern recognition. Uh, and yeah, I've seen the patterns in his game, and he's a very I won't say bog standard fighter, but he's like predictable, very German in his fighting style. Very efficient, but very like regimented, and you know what's going to happen. He's very well drilled, I'll say that, but I don't think he puts the MMA together as well as he might. Maybe in the next few years, maybe if he worked on it a little bit more. But I think separately the arts are good, but I don't think he's a complete mixed martial arts fighter.
Like maybe you're able to, I guess, blend the disciplines more fluidly than him, or is that a mischaracterization of what you're saying?
I just I'm not saying I'm a complete MMA fighter just yet. I haven't hit my peak yet, but I just feel like the little in between parts of MMA where I am good, it's where he's not good. I feel like when he's striking, he's striking. When he's grappling, he's grappling. Where I feel like I'm just fighting in there and flowing through them.
And I've kind of gotten that sense from some interviews that I've seen with you, like in as far as talking about some other fighters who are out there right now, where it might behoove them to, fight you a bit sooner because when you, I guess, like tighten up certain aspects of your game, then it's gonna, be really to their detriment in a certain regard. Like they're almost better off trying to take advantage of where you're at now and stuff like that. Like what exactly is it that you feel you've made like the biggest strides in? Like what are you really trying to work on to get to that point that you're kind of alluding to in
Um,
some of the interviews I've seen?
I think my takedown defense has improved the most. My striking is always improving. Um, I People forget I've not been doing MMA that long. I came from a jiu-jitsu background. I've been doing MMA. I made my MMA debut less than 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, maybe three and a bit years ago. Um, so I'm still making massive leaps and bounds in my striking. I took to striking very well when I did start. My frame and my build obviously helps with that. But I train with the best guys in the world, I believe, as well when it comes to striking and MMA. And yeah, overall, my whole game is become more complete. My offensive wrestling is starting to get to a level where it will be dangerous as well. And obviously, my jiu-jitsu has always been good. So yeah, I think we'll see a new style, a new form of me come out now. It's been nearly a year since I've been properly out there in the octagon cage, so it'd be good to showcase that.
And that's kind of interesting. Like you say properly out there because you had a fight in the intervening moments since prior to your last Octagon fight. Like, do you feel like the fights on the Octagon circuit are more of like the level you're looking to compete at? I guess I'm kind of curious about the wording there in a sense.
Well, I'm looking to compete against the best in the world. What I meant by that is that I've had a couple fights in the intermediary, like you said, but they were on regional shows, like, you know, two, three, four, 500 people in the crowd. Like, I mean, back on a proper show, 5, 10, 15,000 people in the crowd, arena, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, big show, big production, all of that. Interviews, media days, press conference, all of that kind of stuff. And I love that. I live for all of that. I haven't seen Robin Frank doing any interviews, any media. He's probably shying away from that, but I feel like that's a very unprofessional approach. So I think this is part of the job. You know what I mean? This is part of what we do. You can't shy away from this side of the sport. Otherwise, you're going to fade into irrelevance. You can be the best fighter in the world if you want, but if no one knows who you are, it doesn't really matter, does it?
So your perception is almost like he's trying to just like, I don't know, squarely focus on the fight and he doesn't maybe see the utility in doing certain interviews or media, etc.
I'm not trying to put any words in his mouth. I just maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's turning them down. Maybe none of the journalists want to interview him because he's boring. You know what I mean? I'm not sure which it is. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that they've tried to get in touch with him and interview him, and he's turned it down because he wants to focus purely on the fight. But listen, I'm still focused on the fight. You know what I mean? I have bits of spare time in here and there during the week. I'll do what I can to get my bit of media work done. Um, at the end of the day, he's going to have to be at the press conference on Friday, and he can't turn that down. So he's going to have to be sat there at a table with me, and I'm going to be slabbering him, and he's not going to have much to say then, is he? So
I'm just kind of curious to, I guess, follow up on a previous statement where you were talking about just, how much Octagon brings to the table as far as like just, the media days, press conferences, and then even just like the magnitude of crowds that they've been able to draw. Like, how much has it, I guess, benefited your progress in MMA to be competing in some of these, like, I guess, maybe more high pressure situations in a relative way? Like, you were talking about some of the fights you've had in the intervening months, and they were on smaller circuits with like smaller kind of crowds they were drawing. Like, how much do these kind of like bigger moments in front of those massive crowds really galvanize what you're doing and I guess just benefit the progression? Like, obviously fighting the
yeah,
caliber of fighters you're fighting is part of it, but yeah.
yeah. Obviously, it just gives me experience fighting in arenas and gives me experience knowing that, like, okay, that crowd won't get to me. End of the day, it doesn't matter if there's 100,000 people in the crowd or 50 people in the crowd. In the cage, it's going to be me and that other person and the referee, and that's it. So it's knowing that, like, I can perform under those sort of situations. I can perform when I'm getting booed by 5,000 people. I can perform when people are cheering for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is irrelevant to me. Um, I do like to put on a show for the crowd as well. Like the walkout, all of that. That's where it like makes a difference, I think, for the walkout and for like after the fight, the celebrations. But during the fight, you're in the tunnel. It's just you and your opponent and the referee.
Just seems like such an interesting time for you in your career because I saw a post a few weeks ago on Instagram
Hmm.
talking about how this is going to be a big year for you. You get to meet your son and everything like that, which is massive. And it just seems like you're poised to go on a pretty big run with Octagon if you have things fall in your ideal kind of pattern here. So can you kind of, I guess, just talk about your thoughts and goals and feelings for 2025 as things kind of
Yeah,
keep going here?
yeah. I mean, well, I'm 6-2 now. Officially on Fight Matrix, I'm 6-2. Um, I'm looking to have 4 fights this year. Going a 4 fight win in 2025, and that will put me at like an 8 fight win streak. Um, and yeah, then 10-2, it's not a bad record. Should be knocking on a title fight, if not even before that. I'll definitely be top 10 in Octagon. Should be knocking on a title fight in and around there, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I mean, quite the localized journey with the promotion, just considering how well you did in the Octagon Challenge series, getting to the finals and all. And I guess if you parlayed that into eventually winning a championship with Octagon, I mean, it would seem like a cool journey for you just with the promotion at different points in your growing career.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like obviously, George beat me in that final of the Octagon Challenge. He's gone on and won a couple fights as well since he's been with Octagon. Uh, I'd like that. I'd like to run that back at some point, you know what I mean? Maybe in the next couple of years or whatever. Let us both develop a little bit, and then when we're both on like big tears, and people see that fight for what it really was, is two big prospects, two of the biggest prospects in Octagon in the lightweight division, coming out and having a fight. You know, he might have won that, but let's see what would happen if we cross paths again in the future.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some exciting potential there for sure. I mean, the story would already be built in, no doubt, but just kind of curious to also go back on something you were talking about before, because you were talking about just how pedigreed a lot of like your training partners are. And from what I was seeing, getting in that workout of Manchester top team, I guess like one of your compatriots there, from what I'm seeing, Lerone Murphy has a fight coming up against Josh Emmett in April. Like, do you have any thoughts on that UFC fight? That would seem like a big moment for both of those guys in the featherweight ranks.
Yeah, Lerone's undefeated. You know, they call him the miracle for a reason. I think he's blessed. You know, he's a blessed guy. Works hard, extremely talented. Started late in his life in martial arts, like myself. He's a big inspiration for me in that way. Um, I do think he'll outclass Emmett. He just has to avoid that big right hand, doesn't he? I think he'll outclass Emmett and fight a smart fight and keep working his way through the rankings, you know. And that featherweight division's opened wide up now that Ili Tapuri is gone. Max Holloway's gone up as well. You know, you've obviously got Pitbull come in, but Pitbull's a bit old now. But yeah, like Volkanovski's fighting for the belt again. So that top 10 is now wide open. Like it, you know, Lerone beats Josh Emmett, gets in that top 10. He's in the mix. You know, one more fight, and he's maybe fighting for a title, depending on who it is, how he wins. You know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly would be, very well positioned in that division, you'd have to think. But that was kind of something that I guess, gleaned from looking at some of your social media over the last little bit. Like, you seem very open-minded to, I guess, just get different looks from so many different combat sports athletes. Like, I thought it was cool seeing you work with Rico Franco, who's done such great things on the BKB circuit and has previously fought for Golden BKFC and also has a big fight coming up against Jimmy Sweeney, which like there's some history there. But just to, serve that
Yeah.
point of it's cool how open-minded you seem to, I guess, get this knowledge from so many different people in martial arts.
Yeah, 100%. I'm always up for it. Mate, I'd fight bare knuckle. You know what I mean? I like learning from everywhere, and I like competing. I'm a competitor. I just like competing under any rule set. I'd like to do like one rule set fight at least in every rule set. Does that make sense? Do one Thai fight, do one Taekwondo tournament, do one kickboxing fight, do one bare knuckle fight, do a boxing fight. You know what I mean? Do a slap fight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just the cool, I guess, aspects of this present landscape for fighters. Like, it seems like they can explore, I guess, these independent contractor opportunities more than they've ever really been able to. Just it seems like there's so many options out there for whatever people, decide they want to do. Like, some people try out a certain martial art for a period of time and then they'll, try out another one and maybe have a certain level of success in there. Like, it's just cool that there's the, I guess, options available. That must be exciting for someone like you based on how you laid that out there.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like I said, I just want to try everything. You know, I try everything once.
Yeah, it just seems like bare knuckle has grown so much. Like, I've seen in different interviews, you've obviously been asked about like Conor McGregor, considering you're part of that Irish MMA tradition in your own right, and just how much of a figurehead he's been in BKFC for the last, I guess, close to a year now at this juncture. So yeah, just good to see what that's done for, I guess, combat sports and all.
Yeah, he's definitely heavily involved, and he's definitely been an influence on the growth of Irish MMA. But that's not even really why I would be interested in bare knuckle boxing. I just feel like it's a purer form of combat. You know what I mean? Like really, when we're in MMA, when we wrap our hands up and put them in gloves, we've like made our hand into a brick. So you can throw it a bit more reckless abandon with your hands, where bare knuckle you have to like be a bit more careful about where you're punching and stuff. So it's a purer form of striking.
Yeah, you have to be very, I guess, very much more methodical with the shot selection and all.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
I guess it's interesting then, because I was going to, and maybe these aren't necessarily directly tied together per se, but just curious to get your thoughts on, becoming the first Irishman to win in Octagon MMA, because I saw an article came out talking about that circa January 2024 with the, Octagon 52 performance there and everything like that. Like, what are your, I guess, just thoughts on all of that? Like, is there a certain level of esteem that comes with that, or just kind of growing your own legacy while also representing Irish MMA in a certain regard?
Yeah, obviously, like, being a trailblazer in that way was definitely nice. And then to see, obviously, that was at the beginning of the year, first show of the year for Octagon in Newcastle. And then by the end of the year, we've had Will Fleury become the first Irish champion of Octagon. So it was nice. And now here we are. Once again, we're fighting on the same card. Will Fleury is headlining the main card, and I'm headlining the prelims. So yeah, obviously we're both at different parts of our journey. He's a bit more experienced, a bit around the game a little bit longer than me, but it's good to see that we're as Irish people, as Irish fighters, we are showing what we can do in Octagon as well. In yet another promotion, we're dominating.
Is there a certain camaraderie you feel with your Irish peers and whatnot? It seems like, based on that anecdote, that there is some kind of camaraderie just representing Irish MMA as you're both at different points in your journeys, as you kind of outlined.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that, like, obviously we don't train for the same team and stuff like that. We never train together, but like we still walk out with the same flag. And I think we all want to see Octagon go to Ireland, to the Three Arena, and do an Irish show. They did the UK, they didn't do Ireland, and I think it's time soon for us to go back to Ireland and do an Irish show with Octagon.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't touch upon this. Like, perhaps you have some thoughts on this. Like, just you mentioning Irish fighters succeeding in other promotions. I thought that was demonstrated in the Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov fight, despite not getting the victory per se. I think a lot of people really were impressed by what Hughes was able to do. And then I don't know, it kind of seemed like Habib and Connor quasi got involved in that, and Habib made some comments, kind of, I guess, turning a certain eye towards Irish MMA as far as like the depth of the talent pool compared to, I guess, what he would find in his home country. Like, obviously there's the intrinsic bias there and everything like that, but just curious all the same to get your thoughts on that. Like, did you have any response when you had caught wind of Habib maybe making those comments about Irish MMA, or did you maybe not factor that in or have a
Um,
pronounced reaction?
y yeah, like obviously Khabib made some comments about Irish MMA, but at the end of the day, like, you know, the Russians are, the Dagestanis are doing MMA years. Like, they've only just started coming out into the MMA fray, but they've been doing like Sambo and all that for years before the Irish even knew what wrestling was and all that kind of stuff. So, but at the end of the day, the Irish have been great boxers, and everyone prefers watching boxing anyway. Like the probably the most successful MMA fighter ever to come out of the UFC is Irish. First ever double champ, most successful in terms of money. And yeah, Khabib beat him, but let's be honest, Connor's still richer and more famous. Depends what you're looking at. Are you looking to be a prize fighter? You're looking to be a skill fighter. It's one of them. I didn't take any personal offense to it because, like you said, he's just intrinsic bias that he's going to be saying stuff like that. I thought Paul Hughes beat his brother or his cousin or whatever it is, Usman. So yeah, it's what it is.
And also, part of the reason I brought up that fight was because it took place under the PFL umbrella. And for you, it seemed like there was at one point some, I guess, teasing that was out there of maybe making a PFL debut. Like, was that the case? And if so, why did that not transpire from your understanding?
Yeah, so there was supposed to be a PFL debut last year. Um, Things didn't work out because of some contractual disputes. But yeah, that's all. As I say, that's all in the past now. Last year's last year. this weekend I've got a job to do. We've got we've got what 5 days now until I get to do a job on this German kid, and I get to do it in a big full sold out arena in Stuttgart in Germany. So things work out the way they're supposed to. God always has a plan, and I trust God's plan more than I trust my own plans.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and you were talking before about that distinction sometimes people have between, I guess, being like a skilled fighter versus being a prize fighter. I guess when you're using that kind of language, I guess to me at least, I would make the inference that maybe you have a particular idea in your head of what would represent like your most ideal finish, or maybe something that you're visualizing a fair bit. Like, if so, and I'm correct in that assessment, like, what is that? Like, what do you see transpiring here when all is said and done with this fight?
Um, I believe I'll submit him within the distance, probably end of round two, round three. I think I'll be too much for him on the feet. He'll try and engage in the grappling, and my grappling will be too much for him, and I'll end up submitting him. That's how I see it going.
Yeah, it'll be a very intriguing fight for sure. And I think something that was drawing the intrigue of a lot of people as well was that whole situation with Paddy Pimblett somewhat recently. I'd be curious to get some thoughts on that. Like, if there's anything maybe you wanted to clarify with that, because I feel like one of the things that I kept seeing was like maybe some people making comments about how he like held on to the choke for too long, but then he came out and said, like we both agreed we'd do this gym fight and, you know,
I've
stop until someone's
I've
unconscious.
I've
Yeah.
I've I've spoke about yeah, I've spoke about this topic so much. I'm sure there's like probably hours worth of video footage of me talking about it at this point. Yeah, I'm not really arsed that he held on to the choke. Don't really care. It's sorted now. We met up, had our fight, shook hands afterwards like men, and that's it. Um, and yeah, like I said, like that's drawn a lot of eyes to this next fight. So this weekend I've got to go and perform. That's the main thing.
And it seemed like he had a takeaway to it that was kind of similar in a certain regard, like almost like you squashed whatever rivalry was there. And then he was talking about how that could maybe serve as a source of inspiration for younger kids, like instead of escalating a feud where there's like weapons involved and stuff like that, like, hey, just have it out like men and just whatever, like whatever happens, there's that respect after, and it's just like a done sort of
Yeah,
issue in a sense. Like, is that a sentiment that you agree with also?
100%, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, just I guess it is what it is. I mean, like it seemed like you guys had the rivalry and sorted it out. So something admirable about that in a certain regard. Just like you have the rivalry, it's like, hey, let's meet up, let's sort this out, and by all accounts, it's sorted. So yeah, I mean, setting a good example in that sense. I suppose rather.
Yeah, for sure. We have to set a good example for the young generation as martial artists. Like, we know how to fight. So what's the point in knowing how to fight if you're gonna go and pick up something and do something that you're gonna regret later on in life?
Yeah, no, I hear that for sure. And also something I was noticing in doing my research on you, I saw that when you were a younger lad, you spent a bit of time living in Toronto, Ontario, which is like close to my neck of the woods in Canada. So that was kind of a cool little thing to see.
Yeah, yeah. Till I was about 4 or 5 years old, I lived in Toronto, Scarborough.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, cool to see, man, for sure. But I do want to be mindful of the fact that it is fight week and you're so close to this fight. I mean, definitely very much seem locked in for this one and just, yeah, excited to see
100%.
what's going to transpire coming up here, no doubt. But I also figured I'd give you the floor in case you had a final parting thought you were wanting to add as we're wrapping up here, man.
Yeah, just thanks for having me on, Dylan. And yeah, I'm gonna anyone who wants anyone who wants to check in, the Zone RTL Octagon TV on Saturday. I should be on about 8:30 local time. That'll be like Central European time. I don't know what time that is for everyone else. Not gonna go through all the different time zones, but yeah, check it out. It's gonna be a banger of a fight regardless. I do think it will go into the later rounds. I don't think it'll be a quick finish, but no one wants a quick finish anyway. We want to see some blood and we want to see all that. So yeah, do check in, watch the fight, and be entertained.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more intriguing fights set for that event, and a deep card with Octagon 68. I always enjoy their product, and I'll definitely be checking things out on March 8th for this Robin Frank fight. But until then, Dennis, thanks so much for coming on Bowks Talking Bouts today. All the best with the remainder of the fight week preparations and everything. And just, yeah, you have a good rest of your day too, man. Thank you.
Nice one. Appreciate it, Evan. Yeah.